5 years into this battle, there's an understandable debate over whether the war was worth fighting, whether the fight is worth winning, and whether we can win it. The answers are clear to me. Removing Saddam.
The time has come to face some hard facts. America did not win anything in Iraq when Saddam Hussein was deposed. What we inherited was another failed country, another Middle Eastern nation with corrupt government and prone to being overrun by killers with enough weapons and stones to make it happen. ISIS is on the doorstep of Baghdad. The same killers we've been told for weeks are being defeated. So let's dig in. Our guest is Executive Director of the National Security Network, a former Foreign Service officer and former Foreign Policy Advisor. John Bradshaw joins us. John, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
John, we get word now that there is apparently 8 suicide bombers that managed on Friday to get into the Iraqi military base where hundreds of U.S. Marines are training the Iraqi counterparts. They were killed by an ISF counterattack almost immediately. Is it inevitable that Iraq is simply going to fall again and all the work we put into that country will go to waste?
ISIS right now does not have the military capability to successfully take over Baghdad. They do have this capability to launch terrorist attacks, which, as you mentioned, is a very serious issue. ISIS, of course, has been able to make inroads throughout Iraq when they are operating in Sunni areas where the disaffected Sunni population either supports them or tolerates them. As they move closer to Baghdad into a more diverse population, a more heavily Shiite-dominated, they'll find it very tough to be able to sustain that kind of insurgent warfare. So it's a very serious situation that needs to be dealt with, but Baghdad itself right now does not appear to be in any danger of falling.
But what does it say when you have 8 suicide bombers that managed to get that close, and we are told that the Iraqi services themselves are supposed to be getting better at protecting their own country?
The Iraqi forces have been a disappointment. They were given a lot of training and equipment by the United States. The main problem they've faced is that they have yet to establish a real morale and a sense that they are fighting to defend the government there, because they don't support the government, a lot of the troops. So that's where the issue is to get them to have more of a fighting spirit and be more vigilant. I'm not sure of all the details of what happened in the case of these suicide bombers, but that's where we have trainers over there, we're working with them closely, that we need to improve the morale and fighting spirit of those Iraqi troops.
2 other places where there are conflicts going on right now in the Ukraine. Supposedly there is a peace deal that is supposed to take effect on midnight Saturday, and already there are more people dying, more weapons being moved, and it would seem as if Vladimir Putin has once again played everybody for a fool. Would you agree?
This ceasefire has some potential. I would agree that we are in no position to trust Putin and his motives right now. Is he serious about this ceasefire? The situation, the unsettled situation in eastern Ukraine seems to in some way benefit or play into Putin's plans, so there may be no real interest there in a serious ceasefire. But the Europeans, the Germans, French are determined to push the diplomatic approach, the ceasefire approach, as far as they can go. If it doesn't work, and we'll find that out relatively soon, there are still fighting going on, and there are still Russian weapons and troops coming in. If it doesn't work over the coming days, then both Europe and the United States, with Europe playing a key role, will have to think about broader sanctions or other potential interventions.
John, do you really, though, think sanctions will work at this time? We've been down this road before. The sanctions don't seem to have any effect whatsoever. Putin merely is moving more goods into Ukraine right now. It simply is that he is completely undeterred by anything. And I've got about 40 seconds before we take a break.
Well, I think the sanctions had some effect on getting Putin to at least slow down what he was doing over the course of months. And yes, I agree with you that it hasn't been as effective as we had hoped. But right now, the other alternatives of getting the U.S. Embroiled in a war on Russia's doorsteps is probably very unwise to deal with a serious regional situation, but one that does not directly threaten the United States right now.
We'll wait and see what happens here. We have to take a break. Let's get to it now. The president, who wants to be a man of peace, yet is seemingly determined to put America on a war footing, some believe from which there is no possible way of winning anything. That's on deck after the break. Plus, we also look at what may be happening in Yemen and the fact that the United States is now saying we were completely caught off guard. MidPoint continues. Back to work and turning to the president and his idea of waging war, that and more. Welcome back, Executive Director of the National Security Network, John Bradshaw. John, I wanted to just stay overseas for a moment and get your opinion on what's happening in Yemen, but specifically about what was said by Nick Rasmussen, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, who said that the overthrow of Yemen's government by Shiite rebels caught U.S. intelligence completely off guard. Doesn't that prove once again how ill-prepared we are, how badly spent our intelligence money is at this point, and how much ground we have to make up in order to get back in the fight at an intelligence level around the world?
U.S. intelligence operatives had very strong ties with the Yemen government that has been overthrown, and actually are developing and have some ties with the Houthi forces that are now in control of the country. I am surprised by Mr. Rasmussen's statement. I think that the intelligence forces are very concerned about what's happening in Yemen, so it surprises me if that's the case, but I have no direct knowledge of whether that was true or not.
What's that going to do to the overall morale of these men and women working around the world, both here in America, in security, and those around the world who basically, and in essence, here comes the cliche again, seem to be getting thrown under the bus by the people up at the top?
Well, I don't think that's really the case. Of course, the embassy in Yemen had to close. We still have some very courageous special operations forces who are continuing to work on counterterrorism operations there in Yemen. And there, even since the overthrow of the previous government, we have had at least one drone strike. So I think the cooperation is continuing to proceed there. It's very tough to penetrate a lot of these societies and these terrorist groups. The intelligence operatives that we have are very skilled, but it's not an easy job, and we really need more Arabic speakers and more people that have a background that can help us penetrate a lot of these organizations.
But I have to then ask, because we have heard those words, and you are exactly correct, the people that we need to infiltrate overseas. We've heard this many times. I've heard this now for well over 10 years, that we need more Arabic speakers. We need more people to work overseas. Here we are again, still saying the exact same thing. So doesn't that just tell us that the last 10 years or so, much has been wasted, not only money, but in manpower, because had these things been really taken seriously and really focused on 10 years ago, we might not be where we are today. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say that we could have done better, and there certainly has been some waste, but overall, our intelligence capabilities have improved dramatically since 9/11. There's been, in some cases, there's a lot of redundancy, which is also a problem and is wasting taxpayers' money. But in general, the sensitivity of our intelligence gathering to things that are happening in the Middle East is much better. Of course, 9/11 was really missed when there were so many very obvious clues out there that something was up. And I think that kind of thing is very unlikely to happen again. We're much better at detecting and capturing, detecting plots and capturing some of these would-be terrorists.
John, a couple minutes we have left here. The president's proposed authorization for use of military force, the AUMF. There are many people in Congress on both sides of the aisle, and many critics and many strategic analysts we've talked to who quite frankly think it's a complete joke. As a matter of fact, they even point to the fact that there's language in here that may render the entire proposal completely meaningless down the road. Is this just the president's idea of a poorly prepared bad joke? It doesn't seem to solve anything.
I think that we're going to see a very useful debate in Congress over these issues, which has started already. The president sent up a proposal that is trying to please people on both sides of the aisle, and it is a little bit muddled, I think.
But isn't that the wrong thing to do, John? If you don't mind my interrupting, isn't that the wrong thing to do to try and placate everybody here? You've got to get down to business.
Well, what the president wants, and what I think is a good idea, is to have the Congress and the American people all behind what the administration is doing, both this administration and the next one, which could be Republican or Democrat. He's asking for a 3-year sunset clause. So in 3 years, we'll look at where we are and debate the strategy, debate what we need to do, rather than drifting into the kind of war that we started in 2001, where we are now having operations all over the world that were never contemplated by the people that voted for that authorization on September 18th, 2001. So I think it's a healthy thing for our country, for people to know who we're at war with, why we're at war, to have an open debate, rather than giving the president the kind of blank check that was given by Congress in 2001 and has led to this perpetual state of war that we're in so many years later.
I only got about 20 seconds left. Is that the biggest problem, John? People have forgotten the reasons why we're at war?
Well, what it does is allow the president to start, any president, to start attacking and being at war with groups that are associated with other groups that may be associated with al-Qaeda. It doesn't let the public have a strong sense of exactly who we're attacking and why. And I think that's healthy in a democracy, constitutional democracy, for the president to play his role, for Congress to play his role, and for the people to be informed and be supportive when the president takes military action.
Let's get them talking. John Bradshaw, thank you so much for your time. I'll look forward to the next time we speak. And MidPoint, where we question everything, will continue.